Go on, copy me.
Go on, copy me.
Be nice to me. Oh, my forehead's so shiny. What's this called?
Oh, it doesn't have a name. I can't name things.
Okay. Hello, and welcome back to Aldra's Life, I guess, because that's the name of the channel.
There you go.
We're starting a brand new series, that is to say, I guess the first series on this, which is going to be a consistent book review, and it's Olivia's idea, so I'll let her say. Oh, this is Olivia! No, you know Olivia, because we're the rebranding, because, you know, you've been on the video plenty of times, but no, this is Olivia.
I'm normally in the background.
It's true.
Well, you're making me then. Okay, I can't remember how I explained it to you.
I don't remember. I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay.
Oh, we're also drinking Adam Ragusia's margaritas. Adam Ragusia's margaritas, which is essentially an ectoplasmic tequila, sugar, lime skin mixture. It's quite nice. I think I prefer traditional margaritas.
I prefer your one.
I do too. What, my margarita.
I know it is your one.
It's just Cointreau and tequila and lime juice.
Your one.
Yeah.
Who picked this book? That's the problem. It's kind of a circular thing, so I guess we kind of picked it together, didn't we? So we
yeah.
brought
No,
rules.
I think you picked
We
it.
were reading it, or
we were reading it at the same time. Okay.
okay,
yeah,
right. So to take it in turns. So let's just pretend I picked this one because that might make nice and easier.
This is the rules.
I picked this one.
Yep.
Yeah. We then have a month to read it.
Okay.
And then we sit down, we talk about it.
Okay.
And at the end of the video, the other person, so in this case it'd be you.
Yes.
You then say, and next month we're reading.
Yes,
yeah?
and it's a surprise
and
every
it's a
time.
Surprise. And then the idea is that if anyone else wants to read it, they have a month to read it.
Yeah.
And then watch the video, because the video will have spoilers.
Yeah,
that's
good point. Yeah, good thing to focus on.
Yeah.
We're you know, it's a small channel, so there's not gonna be a lot of people. But even if one person wants to read along with us, I think it'll be cool. And in future, we're gonna be live streaming these.
Are we?
Okay, in the future we might be live streaming these, or in the very least we'll have a live chat with the premiere of the video, so that people can discuss. I like the idea of creating. This is Olivia's idea, and I really like the idea of like having a discussion every month of a book. Plus, reading at least a book a month, I think, is the minimum that a minimum, really. Yeah. I mean, we're at 2 or 3 a month, easy, I think.
I just like the idea of reading a book together.
Yeah, yeah.
And then discussing it, and so yeah, that's where the idea came from.
So, you know, we did this already, but we chose The Bell Jar, which is Sylvia Plath's really depressing. It's not an autobiography, though. There's a word for this. Olivier,
you're writing fiction, but it's based on your life.
Yeah, but if you haven't heard of Sylvia Plath, she is primarily a poet, but also a published novelist, except she, unfortunately, is more famous for the fact that she committed suicide a few months after the publication of the novel. Yeah, now I'm sad, honestly.
Yeah, great start, brilliant.
Yeah, she lived a very interesting life in the sense that she had a lot of promise and potential, at least when it comes to, from other people looking at her life. She, I mean, upper middle class, good educated prospects, but someone very clearly suffering from, well, what was it most likely she determined? Just depression?
I think it's just, depression.
Severe depression, but there was something else.
Not a situational depression, when it's more of a chemical depression, when it's like, it's
she
not
needs
your
some
situation
drugs.
causing it. Yeah.
So, this is her novel, but it's basically just her life, and I'm going to start just by saying I have very mixed feelings about this book. I read a description, actually, that I really, really like, and it was on Reddit, because I often do this when I read a book. I like to see what other people thought of it, maybe because I'm a sponge and I just morph my opinions based on what other people want, apparently. But I wanted to see what other people thought, and someone said that this book was so potent and so hit them like in a weird way that they couldn't describe, like seeing through the looking glass, that they had to read a pop fiction novel, like a breezy, off-the-shelf book, just to recover from it. I didn't feel that at all.
See, this is the second time I've read it.
Yeah, she's read it twice.
So, the first time I read it because of another book where the main character, it was their favourite book. And I wouldn't say that main character was depressed, but they definitely had some problems that they were younger. They were a younger teenager. They weren't really sure what was going on, and they found a lot of comfort in this book. And so I then wanted to read it, and I would say I got a lot more from it that time, and I agree with that a lot more about it was quite hard-hitting the first time, and I came away from it thinking, oh god, that was terrible, I now need to read something a bit more easygoing, something that's not as hard. Whereas this time, on the reread, I didn't get that.
Yeah.
It annoyed me in a lot of places, I found it empty, I got a completely different experience on the reread.
I've only read it once, and I just feel that it's a story of someone who just needs help, and okay, this is gonna sound weird. I struggled to get past that.
Okay, I think, and we haven't mentioned this, it's set in 1953.
Oh, that's important. If you haven't known, this is set in 1953.
That's
where people
important for this.
This isn't your everyday story of depression in modern life. This is set in 1953, post-Korea, currently Korea War. And, you know, if you had depression or bipolar disorder, they didn't give you drugs or therapy. We didn't have therapy. They electrocuted you and then injected you with insulin until you had so many seizures that you lost the ability to feel sad. Or anything. Because it was a wonderful time.
And that's where I think the first time I read it,
I
found it very interesting. Because I didn't know a huge amount about how depression was treated. I knew a little bit. I learned a little bit in, like, psychology A-level. And, you know, we watched...
Mad Men. A Beautiful Mind.
Mad Men, yeah. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. The film.
I haven't seen or read it.
Like...
Need to do that.
I got the basic idea. I got that it wasn't nice and like other things that I've just heard. But this was interesting for actually getting a kind of first-person view on what it was like. On the reread, maybe because now I have that knowledge and I know more about it, I found the book annoying in that it didn't have enough detail and everything was vague. Everything was kind of touching on the surface of insulin treatment and electrotherapy and the body.
All the interesting stuff was kind of left to the side.
I've actually, this is marking.
She notes things.
The first half of the book, like it really is the first half, does not address it at all. The whole first half.
Because that's all in New York, isn't it?
This entire bit is set in New York. It is only here that she even goes back home, and then the first chapter, even there, doesn't really touch on it that much. It's only after that she sees a therapist, and then she's committed. So. Yeah, it's just not enough space. I mean, that's 130 pages. You can only do so much in that 130 pages.
You know what I thought was really weird? I felt more for the other crazy people.
Huh?
Plath meets, or actually her name is not Plath, her name is Edith. No. Esther something silly. I can't remember the show. I think it feels like a deliberately silly name, I feel.
Yeah.
Or old-fashioned name. And she meets other people in the asylum, and she meets... and an old friend who was actually a love rival, right?
Is she there? That's my question.
Okay, well,
that's a topic for afterwards.
Okay, yeah. So this is just for the discussion. That's how it's going to be. But Olivia believes, or has an inkling, that the person Joan, who is the kind of a barely mentioned, to be honest, love rival. That is to say, the person who Esther is kind of dallying with and potentially should be marrying if it wasn't for her depression and desire to not be a boring person. The person who could have stolen the handsome doctor away, right? But then she also is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And Olivia raises some really good points. That it's possible that she's not real and that she's actually just a personification of what could be the worst situation for Edith, which is that she kills herself by hanging in the woods, which is really weird. But I don't know, because other people well, they don't, do they? Only in the same context. I don't know, man. I don't think she intends it.
I'm trying to find the chapter.
I don't think Plath intends. It's definitely the author.
Joan ends up in the hospital with her, and there's like a conversation that goes something along the lines of, how did you get here? Why are you here? Well, because I saw your story in the paper, Esther.
Yes, I remember that. That was really weird. Yeah, and it's actually just like she doesn't have any original thought.
Also, I'm just like flicking through to try and see. I think this is before she's actually committed. This is when she's at home.
Yeah.
That morning I tried to hang myself. Joan hangs herself. I don't know. I just kind of get these.
You think it's like a Tyler Durden type thing, but like a really sad version?
I was thinking, well, what was the film that we watched? I can't remember what it was called. With the schizophrenic, the man.
A Beautiful Mind. A Beautiful Mind.
Yeah, sorry, that's one. And that kind of concept of you think these people are real.
Yeah.
And then you find out I don't know. I feel like it kind of touches on that.
Well, if you want to go on that route, I mentioned Tyler Durden with Fight Club. Spoiler alert, Tyler Durden isn't real. In Fight Club, Tyler Durden is not just like an alternate ego for Jack, or the narrator. He is the personification of what he wishes he could be, and also what he could aspire to be, and thus also what he thinks mankind should be. The whole thing about him... He kind of treats it. I'm not going to... this is going to become a discussion of Fight Club. But,
all right, we're at that bit then.
Yeah. It's great. I really like it. The Jack, he kind of considers himself almost an emblematic of the human race, right? He is a symptom of the scar of humanity. And Tyler Durden is something that maybe we could elevate ourselves to. If Joan is fake, right? If Joan isn't real, she's the opposite of Tyler Durden. She is the negative to the Tyler Durden positive. She's the black to the white.
Yeah.
She is the what Edith could be if she didn't get better.
Yeah, well, you've to support that, you've got at the end, you've got Joan who's hung herself, she's dead, and then you've got Esther, who it ends the book, if I'm remembering rightly, with her going into kind of her meeting with her going to decide whether she can leave the hospital and whether she can go back home, and you don't find out. It's just her walking into the room. So it's like you have these two different, like, these characters have come from the same place, they've known each other from their childhood. One of them
just before reaching that point.
Route. And one of them has...
Okay, you're starting to convince me a little bit.
Do you see what I mean? And it's like, well, what does happen to Esther? Does she stay in the hospital? Does she get released?
I think that's a really, really good point as well to segue into the authorial influence on the interpretation of the novel. Because it's impossible to look at a text like this independent of its circumstance.
Of course, you know who's written it, you know...
Plath killed herself 3 months after the publication of the novel, and before she died, people were like, it's a book! Yeah, it's a book. Interesting. This is like mental health? That's a little weird. And then, boom, killed herself. Ted Hughes, her husband, he's responsible. He's got an affair partner. And then it blew up in the media, and it became a meme, basically. And that's what made it famous. So... the ending is meant to be ambiguous.
Yes.
The ending is meant to be, could Edith? Esther. Jesus.
Let's call her Edith.
Could Plath be better? Could she succeed? Could she go the path that Joan didn't?
Yeah.
But the problem is that we know she doesn't. We know she does die.
But
which is really
if Joan
sad.
Doesn't really exist. Plath follows Joan's route.
Yeah, which is
Esther
sad.
Doesn't. Do you see?
You're saying that the author... So that's like a meta text. The author deliberately killed herself to provide an alternate... That's metatextual analysis.
You've got the two options.
Yeah.
But actually...
it's hard.
Plath is more of Joan than of Esther in that regard. Like, I know that there's a lot of mirrors between Esther and Plath, and I know that. But, like, there's the two options.
Which is the one that had, like, 18 babies?
Not Plath.
No, not Plath. I meant the character in the novel who rides past. That wasn't...
Oh, it was just someone they went to school with.
Okay, sorry.
Her name begins with D.
Dee or... Dee. Yeah, she was one of the plums.
Yeah.
As it were.
Yeah, it's her.
To explain that. It's probably the most quoted part of the novel. And I actually originally thought it was a poem. I think it actually is a poem that she incorporated into the novel. Which is sitting... I'm not going to read the damn thing.
I don't know where it is in here either, so...
I bet you if I could... Oh, you would hold this page.
It's quite early, wasn't it?
It's quite early. That basically, it's about that feeling of trying to decide what you want to do with your life, watching the... sitting at the crook of a plum tree, and watching in each of the plums, you know, an Olympic skater, an astronaut, well, maybe not an astronaut at that time, but doctor, a housewife. All these things are possibilities that she could strive towards. But because she's racked by indecision of her life, she is unable to choose, and one by one the plums fall down. Because by choosing one plum, you can't go for any others. It's the indecision of life. And I think in the first... Actually, I'm going to go back to what you said. I agree with you. The first half of the novel is different than the second half.
It's 2 books in one.
The first half of the novel, I think, is way stronger from a societal and analytical standpoint and from maybe a personal... From a novel's perspective.
Yes.
From something I want to read. I found New York enjoyable. I found it odd, but enjoyable. And an analysis and idea about, like, decisions and life and choices. That's cool. But then it's like, oh, want to kill myself. And then it's just like... just keeps going.
I don't like the first half of the novel.
I've changed my mind. I did actually like it.
I didn't like it either times. I think because I'm going into this wanting to learn about how mental health was treated in the 50s and the 60s.
See, the problem is you're looking at that. Your only reason you're interested in that when reading this book is because of what we know surrounding it.
But, okay, so...
Yeah, so we go into it with that expectation.
Yeah, to be fair, the back of the book starts with working as an intern for a New York fashion magazine in the summer of 1953. Esther Greenwood is on the brink of her future. Yeah. So actually, that's not saying it's about depression at all. It's only really once you go further down in that. And even then, not really.
That implies that she's going to live on the brink of her future.
Well, she is, isn't she? She's kind of... Yeah. But she probably does live.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it's implied. By Joan not living...
Yeah.
I think it's kind of implied that she does live. But yeah, I don't like the first half. I find the first half really boring. Yeah. I think if I want to read a book about 1950s New York...
There's
other books I can read.
I can read Hemingway. Oh, that's before.
So it's interesting that you like that half, whereas I don't, because that's not what I'm reading the bell jar for.
No. Well, I think I try to look at books in a death of the author kind of way, but it's so hard.
I can't with this.
You just can't. Like, case in point, what's my favourite book?
Your favourite book, Patrick O'Brien?
Patrick O'Brien, it's a whole series. What's my favourite book? And she says an author who's written one book series.
Which one of those books in that 21 book series?
Number 1, number 13, number 5, number 3. Okay. And those are my top 4. Aubrey Maturin series, Patrick O'Brien. It's so easy to read independent of the author, but the thing is that the author has a really interesting life, and he was a bit of a douchebag. He was very famous for being, frankly, a very unpleasant person, a bit of a racist. He raised the Tolstoy kid. He was the stepfather to not Tolstoy, but Tolstoy's nephew or grandson. And he had only terrible things to say about him. He was a bastard. But the texts are beautiful. You have to divorce yourself.
Which I normally do,
yes.
very much so.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm very much, I don't want to know about the author.
Sanderson, a freaking devout Mormon who works until 2 a.m.
I'd say it ruins it. The only time I would say it's like Midnight Library, and the more that I've been reading Matt Haig's non-fiction stuff, I've been seeing elements of his life in his fiction.
Oh, Out of Love, my God.
Yeah, okay, that's another example. But yeah, in general, I don't want to know anything about the author.
Yeah.
I want
Just
to
give me the book.
about
Give me the words. Let me eat them.
Yeah. Whereas with this, you can't do that.
No.
You go into this knowing who wrote it, and you're reading it. This is almost a shortened version of her diaries. Her diaries are 2 volumes that are about this thick each and are really heavy.
Maybe I should read them.
I've got the first volume, but it's 4 or 5 times the size of this. And it's a much heavier read because it's actually someone's real life diary. So you do have to kind of wade through all of the mundane. Whereas this is fiction. So this is just like a simplified version of that. And you can't detach yourself from it.
No.
I think.
It's hard to say if it ruins it or if it makes it better or what it does to it. But I definitely finished The Bell Jar and I walked away from it and I do feel sad. I just kind of feel sad. Just kind of generally.
Yeah.
But not like I've been hit with a blow, like some people describe it, and you described it.
The first time I read it, yeah, but I also read it very quickly. I read it in like 2 days the first time I read it.
I took a while to read. I read 1 chapter a day.
Yeah.
So it took me a couple weeks. Which is slow for us.
Yeah.
We're big readers. I started the second volume with The Witcher, and I'm 110 pages in, and I started that 2-3 days ago.
Yeah. You sat down for breakfast and you went, okay, I need to stop. I've read the first 60 pages already.
Yeah, I did.
You're going to need to get up. I'm going to read that book. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think if you read this book over a very short space of time, it is a bit more hard-hitting because obviously you're dedicating a large chunk of your day to it, so you're immersing yourself in this world, and by the second half, you're immersing yourself in the depression. And also, the first half, it's fun, it's New York, it's the fashion scene.
Oh, and they get sick because they eat bad crab, and they get this horrible poisoning, and
but then you jump. And it's like
sex.
Sadness and depression, and it's
just like that, honestly. Which I suppose is accurate. It's a slow settling, and then you realize, and then I'm depressed. You know, that's how it is. There are a few hints in the first half. It's not even a hint. It's a slow decline. It's a looking. Yeah. I mean, for God's sake, her friend arrives drunk and having been taken advantage of at her door, saying, "Please look after me." And the internal monologue of her is just like, "I don't want to deal with this. I'll just leave her on the floor
while she's vomiting.
While she's in a vomited in a pile of vomit. I'll leave her on the floor and close the door, and hopefully, when she wakes up, she won't remember this and instead just think she passed out in front of my door. And then when she wakes up, she's like, oh, cool, she's not there.
There's just like a stain on the carpet.
There's a stain, yeah. Or like a clean stain, yeah. Oh, cool.
That kind
she's
of
gone. Yeah. What a friend.
Yeah, not really.
Not a very good person.
No, she's not a good person. When you see her in New York, she's got this amazing opportunity that, okay, you could argue that she doesn't really want because she's depressed, but she isn't grateful for it. No. She doesn't take advantage of it in the way that all the other girls on the programme take
not even a little bit.
And she's a terrible friend to all of them. We see that she flits between them. She doesn't care about them. It doesn't set her up as being a character you care about.
It's weird, though, because you do care about her, but I think combining that and the author's life, she becomes emblematic of. I love that word so much. It's like a symbol of, right? I just love it. Emblematic. She becomes emblematic of women and mental health in that time, right? She stops being a character to me, and she starts being woman from the 1950s. In the first half, I get, this is a quite strong-willed, cynical, bitter person.
Yeah.
And the second half, she's just a woman from 1950s with depression. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, she's not really
It feels like they were written at different times.
She's not a character. We don't really know a huge amount about her as a person in terms of interests, in terms of... I mean, even... Like, she gets this fashion... It is a fashion internship, isn't it? Or is it a magazine internship?
It's a magazine internship, yeah.
But it has a very fashion focus.
She writes travel stuff.
Right, because they go to a lot of, like...
Yeah, fashion travel. It's a lot of similar stuff, yeah.
But she doesn't even seem to be interested in that.
No.
Because isn't it like when she leaves New York? Is it when she leaves New York, she just leaves all of her stuff?
Yeah.
Like, all of these amazing things that they've given them throughout the internship.
She doesn't leave them. She throws them from the roof of the hotel.
But these are like nice things that they've been given.
Including her normal clothes, so that when she leaves, she has to be like, damn, I don't have any underwear. Like, what? Like, but I mean, that's the point. I think... So this is interesting, because now we know the symbols of suicide, and we now know that the symbols and warning signs of suicide are actually established and psychological phenomena, and people will, in a normal society, will mimic them unintentionally, even if they've never heard of them, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
And one of them is discarding possessions. And so the character does that, but Plath wouldn't have known that. So Plath incorporates that into her character as a symbol of her approaching suicide.
Yeah.
But Plath wouldn't know that's a sign of suicide.
She does. Because, no, that's the...
But she'd know that that was a thing she wants to do, is my point.
I was going to say...
You know,
like,
it's not a fake thing. It's something she goes, well, I feel like this, so my character would feel like this. You know what I mean?
Which is throughout the whole book. So if this book was written now, I'd say this book could be written by somebody who's never had depression and just wants to write a book about depression.
Yeah.
Whereas in the 50s and the 60s, this isn't a book that could have been written by somebody who didn't have depression. This is clearly written by someone who is writing about what they've experienced. Yeah, and it's there. That example of the clothes out the window.
Yeah, it's a very first-hand experience. You know, this isn't 13 Reasons Why. I almost said 13 Going on 30, and I would rather watch that every time than 13 Going on 13 Reasons Why. 13!
It's got a 3 in it.
It's got a 3. Well, this is the thing, is that I knew this would go well. I knew this concept would go well, because we do this all the time. This is not... We actually don't talk to each other.
Who are you?
I don't know. The first video. Yeah, we have never met. So we just do this all the time.
This is a normal walk.
This is a walk, or run, or breakfast. Yeah.
Halfway through an episode of Better Call Saul.
Yeah, exactly. We always talk about books, so why not just incorporate it into this routine of videos? Why not? Yeah. Obviously, it's gonna. The thing is, it's gonna be both a bitch to edit and not a bitch, because almost none of it is gonna be cut, because this is how we speak. But yeah.
Okay.
Would you recommend Belljar to a general purpose person?
Yes, because I think it's a very interesting introduction into mental health at that time and how it was treated. But my biggest problem with it, and I think this comes from I've learnt more, is it doesn't go deep enough.
Agreed.
I want to know more about the insulin treatment and the effects, to the point that when I was reading this, I then started to look up insulin treatment. I want to know more about the woman who's walking around, who's had the lobotomy, who says, oh yeah, I've had part of my brain removed, but I never want to leave this place. This place is wonderful. I want to know more about
Why would I leave, she says.
Yeah, I want to know more about the shock
horrifying.
treatment. And there's better books to read for that.
Yes.
It's a good introduction. I think this book could have either cut at least half of the New York stuff, or this book could have been 500 pages.
I disagree, but I agree with the 500 pages.
Okay, yeah. There needs to be more than 130 pages on the mental health. I'm really interested in that element. This wasn't enough information, so I then went out and bought the first volume of Sylvia Plath's diary.
Yeah.
Problem with her diary is it starts just before Sylvia Plath leaves home to go to college, and it is, I guess, a bit like the first half of this, in that it's about her.
And they've been heavily edited.
Well, I didn't know that till I bought it and read the introduction that was talking about her husband editing.
That's you, Ted Hughes.
Yeah, he cut out the bits that made him look bad, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting, because I think that's what I wanted when I finished this.
Yeah.
But bought the wrong book.
Yes.
And I've never actually read it properly. I've just read like bits of it. But
yeah.
Would you recommend it?
I'd recommend it. I think it's one of those books everyone should read for different reasons for every person. But I think it was really good. I think it was just cool for me as a person. I mean, I struggle with mental health, definitely, in my life. Not anywhere near like this, but something struggling with it. And it's interesting to see extremes. But it's also interesting to see both a feminine perspective and the perspective of someone from a different time. Problem is because she's a woman, she's not respected. And also because she goes to people who find it easier to just lobotomize you or shock you.
Yeah, she only goes to see the therapist once or twice, and he's completely useless, isn't he?
He is.
He basically goes, well, that was a good session after saying nothing to her.
Indeed,
He's like a really
and commenting on the
session,
school.
and-
Exactly. But the thing is that what you should actually do is to then go to a different therapist, and then go to a different therapist until you find the right one. But you can't in 1953.
Yeah.
You don't have. She doesn't have the money.
And her mum's the driving force in this.
Yeah.
And her mum doesn't understand. Doesn't her mum at one point say to her something like...
I knew you'd decide to be
That's
normal.
it.
I knew you'd eventually
Yeah.
decide to stop being so crazy.
Yeah.
Also, it's only mentioned in a single line. Her mother loses her entire life savings.
Is she?
She does. We spoke so long that the recording stopped and I had to restart
Why
it.
did cameras do this
Why?
after 30 minutes?
She liquidates her entire life savings. Silly briefly mentioned, she lost every penny she had, sending her to the really nice private hospital. Like they're not from money, they're middle class.
Well,
So
she ends up there because of her sponsor person.
Yes, yeah, but before that, everything that is about her care is her mother spending all of her money.
Right. I didn't pick up on that. That's weird, isn't it? I wrote it twice and didn't pick up on that.
Yeah. That makes it so much sadder. But the thing is that her mother just doesn't understand. And it's like what you said about the Orwell novel where it was like about building developments.
Coming Up for Air.
Coming Up from Air. So many different Orwell novels.
But you need to read.
I don't need to read.
I love that book.
I haven't read it. Well, that's your business.
Read that book.
Yeah, read that book. And he mentions that there's at one point where he's talking about how we complain about, a new housing development destroying this field. And Orwell's doing that in 1940.
Yeah.
Or 37
he
or whatever.
Basically, he goes back to the town that he grew up in, but he remembers this as being like a tiny, tiny little town. And then he goes back and he doesn't recognise it. And suddenly this town is like 5 times the size with all his housing developments.
Yeah.
And he's just like,
you can always tell when someone likes a book.
Oh, I love that.
You can always tell, like their face. Doesn't your face just light up?
Maybe.
That
book was so comfortable.
If you mention a book I love, I'm sure I just go. I'm sure my beard stands on end. I'm just like, oh yeah, let me tell you about this book. That's what's so great about it.
I could reread that book again today, and I only read it like a month and a half
I'm on The
ago.
Witcher now, and whatever Libya's going to suggest, which we'll talk about in a minute.
I should have picked that. I could have reread it.
Yeah.
I know, I loved that book. It was just so... Anyway.
But yeah, the concept of it's very comforting to know that everyone has been talking about the same thing for 2 generations back. Is the same discussion. I want to complain about Plath's Edith, Esther, whatever her name is, the main character's mother, but in the same way that I want to complain about my mother. And it's never ending. It's nothing to do with people. It's just to do with a difference, you know?
A generational difference.
It's a generational divide.
A little bit, I mean, I'm going off topic to another book. And you haven't read it, but I told you about this the other day. Girl, Woman, Other.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't remember the name of the character, but she was... the non-binary character, and talking to her grandmother, and how her grandmother could understand the concept that she was bisexual.
Yes, you mentioned this, yeah.
Because that was a concept that she understood, but she couldn't understand the fact that her granddaughter was non-binary, and she was saying, I accept you, I'm not judging you, but please accept that because I'm 98 years old or whatever.
Yeah.
This is a concept that I've lived my entire life without, and I've tried to understand, but I can't understand.
Yeah.
And it's a generational difference.
People just don't get it.
Yeah,
you know?
and it's just like I think
but that's
it's
the best you can be, is to just accept. I don't understand it, but I can sympathise.
Yeah, I really liked that. I really liked that portrayal, and I'm going off topic. But that idea of I don't understand, but I want to understand, and I accept you, and I just want you to be happy.
Yeah.
While please just accept that if I say she or her and things like that, I don't mean it maliciously. I just don't understand. And I think it's the same with what you were saying there. Like, her mum in this book is just a different generation.
Yeah.
She can't understand those concepts of mental illness and what her daughter's going through. But it's not. I would say it's not actually her fault. It's
just different.
It's like older generations today. You give them a mobile phone and they might be able to learn how to make a call on it, but they'll never understand the concept of actually using like an iPhone the way it's meant to be used, because they've spent 90 years of their life without it. They can't.
I was reading a Reddit thread about, like, I can't remember what the hell it was about. The discussion was around like feeling mental health and feeling depressed, and when they got depressed, and then telling their father about it, and he was saying, like, he wakes up feeling like this. He feels vacant, empty, and you get niggling thoughts of suicidal intent and various things. And the father's like really silent. He's like, 60-year-old logger or trucker or something. This is an American family, Midwest. And he's like, well, shit, son. I feel like that every day of my life. That's weird. It's just like, oh no, But this is the thing, they don't understand that that means you should have been seeking help,
Yeah.
and you think how many people have killed themselves.
Well, it's like when you read these statistics about how, like, for example, university students are showing higher levels of stress and anxiety than ever before.
No, you're just looking.
Yeah, are they? Or do they just feel more comfortable coming
Yeah.
forward and saying, please help me, I'm stressed?
Yeah.
It's probably that one.
What's that? What's the great story? It's like it's an example of survivorship bias. You look at it, you find it. What's the the World War I thing? They started issuing helmets, and then suddenly the reports of head injury go up by like 2,000%. And some crazy generals, very smart general, sorry, is like, well, helmets are somehow causing head injury, so we should get rid of them. No, those are people who'd be dead. But the helmets caused it into a head injury.
Same with seatbelts.
Beljar!
Beljar!
I think you should read it. Olivia, should you read it?
You should read it.
Great.
But
Okay.
you shouldn't expect to get a complete history of mental health in the 50s.
I'm gonna love cutting this down.
I think that's my bugbear with it.
Yeah.
I want
More.
more.
That's kind of us in general with literature. I think me and Olivia both the same. We want more. When we read something that kind of like, ooh, this is interesting, then now it's gone back to this. I'm like, no. Shut the heck up.
Yeah.
Give me this.
Especially when it is based on truth. If
Yeah.
you get a
Not sure
fantasy...
I understand.
Go away, male English Siri.
If you get, let's say, like, fantasy or sci-fi, you might be like, I want more of the world. But at the end of the day, it's a fictitious world.
The Expanse does this really
and that's
well.
that. Whereas with this, there is so much more. It's already there. It's history. It's real. I want it in this book. The Expanse.
It just does it really well.
Oh, I thought it was
it
more.
goes into things really well and then goes, nope, not touching that, and then it moves away. It goes, yeah.
Yeah. There are things I like about it. So there's times in this book
Expanse.
that's unclear.
Expanse. You like the Expanse.
Okay, well, you get to choose next month, so there you go.
Well, the problem is, how do I pick a whole series?
No, you just pick the first in a series.
Okay. So, the concept of the thing at the end of this is that we each time, one person picks a new book for the next month.
Yes.
What's
Oh, well, you were supposed to be picking this month.
I'm picking
so,
this month.
Shane,
But I couldn't pick a book,
So
and I had
I
anxiety
picked-
about it.
3 books, and
Yes.
you get to pick from those 3.
Okay.
Okay.
I will close my eyes,
Okay.
and I will pick a book. Oh my god, our beer collection.
So
What are
we're
you
going
going
to
to
go
pick?
through explanations.
Okay.
Okay. So, we've got 3 very different...
3 very different books.
Very different books. Okay. So, A Little Life.
Jesus, that's a
Okay.
big book.
This, I've heard nothing but good things about
Oh,
this book.
it's so big.
Okay? Yeah, it is
Lord of the Rings.
700 pages.
Oh
Okay.
my god.
I've heard really, really good things about this book. Everyone loves it. People say it makes them cry. They have to stop reading it because they're crying so much.
Shortlisted for Man Booker Prize.
No, Man Booker. It's the Booker we have problems with.
Okay, yeah.
Yes,
every
right.
every single book that's on the Booker Prize is just absolute insanity. Every time I read it. Go, carry
Okay,
on.
but the problem with this is the overwhelming consensus is that you have to get through the first 100 to 200 pages.
Oh, you
because
mentioned
it's
this.
slow and you're not into it. But once you get through the 200 mark, it is an amazing book and people love it. I got to 108
Okay.
and I was having the problem that everyone says. So reading it together would be good motivation.
Look at the blurb. There's nothing in the blurb. It's just a
There's
bunch of
not a
quotes.
huge amount. It's basically, it's 4 men who met, I'm pretty sure, in college.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, they moved to New York together.
Yeah. No, I
Okay,
remember this.
it's
Yeah.
following their life. It's following their life over lots of years. The main character, can't remember his name. He's supposed to have had a really traumatic childhood, and apparently,
Jude.
That's it, Jude. When it focuses on him, that's where it gets really sad.
Hooray! Okay.
Okay.
Option 1.
Option 1. Option 2. It's nice and short. It's nice and easy.
Ooh,
The Catcher in the Rye.
Catcher in the Rye, because
Right.
I've never read Catcher in the Rye.
It is only 230 pages. We've both been saying we want to read it. I don't really know a huge amount about it. Could be quite fun.
Yep.
Nice and easy. Then we have The Turn of the Screw.
Oh, I want to read that
Now,
too.
I
Ooh, look
bought
at this
this-
beautiful edition.
But it's the
Yeah.
W.H. Smith's Railway
Beautiful, yeah.
edition. I didn't realise this was horror when I bought it. And I'm now a little bit scared to read it. But if I'm reading it with someone, that might help. So,
I pick
there you
Catcher in the Rye.
Well, this will
Next
be-
time. I've never read Catcher in the Rye, and it's something you're supposed to read. You get in American you read it in 9th grade.
You don't read it in British schools.
You don't read it in British
So-
schools. J.D. Salinger is not considered this seminal piece of literature as it is in the U.S. So I've never read it. I've never watched the movie. I know nothing about it other than J.D. Salinger as a character in BoJack Horseman as a parody. So no,
Okay,
I've
cool.
never read it. I'd love to read it. I love novels about teenage rebellion or feelings or medias about that. I love that shit.
Well, there you go then.
Catcher in the Rye.
I needed the motivation to read it, so...
There we go. Alright, so... I picked this, definitely. Was entirely me.
You picked it from 3.
Yeah. So, over the next month, we're going to read Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. This should be up on the 1st, hopefully. I will have edited it and rendered it by then. And that means you should then read Catcher in the Rye. And then by the 1st or the last day, I guess well, it depends.
Are you live streaming it?
We're going to figure it out. It'll be up in the Discord.
If you're live streaming it, we'll do it on the 31st of March.
Yeah. Yeah, if we live stream, we'll do it on the 31st. If not, we'll see if there's any interest. If there's any interest about you wanting to read it with us, please put us down in the comments. We're a small channel. Probably no one's going to reply. Totally fine. We're still going to do it. I don't care. Do you care? No. It's an excuse to read, frankly.
I just want an excuse to read the same book as you and talk about it.
So, yeah, read along with us. Let us know in the comments, and then when it comes down to it, we can discuss it, and we can talk about our thoughts in it. It's not especially long text, but you should read it, apparently, so...
We're going to read it.
Good choice.
There you go.
Thank you so much for watching. Make sure... Oh, I forgot to do this at the beginning. Oh, well. Make sure you do leave a like down below and, of course, comment about whether or not you were interested in reading the book with us. J.D. Salinger's Catcher in the Rye. I don't have an
Read the bell jar?
Read the bell jar. We don't have an outro. We don't have an intro. We don't have a name for this series. We read. I don't know.
I'm really bad at naming things. I name things A, B, C, D, unless you want us to be serious.
Our two beehives are called Hive C and Hive D. Don't ask what happened to Hive A and B. It's not important. Read J.D. Salinger's Catcher in the Rye, and we'll see you next month. There will still be weekly book reviews. I have not done the book review for this week.
I thought this was the book review.
This is the book review for this week. I've done the book review for this week.
Next week is The Witcher.
Next week is The Witcher 1. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next month. Hopefully you've read the book by then, otherwise you get detention. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Oh yeah, tequila. You went ba-ba-da-ba-ba in your head, didn't you?
Oh, I didn't.
I did. Oh, well.
Oh, I didn't.
Oh, well.
Oh, no.